What comes to the mind when you hear the Nigerian slave trade? Badagry, the point of no return, also known as Bereful Island. Badagry is a coastal town in Lagos State, Nigeria, nestled between the Lagos State and the border of the Republic of Benin. It was said to be one of the major slave ports in West Africa. What if I told you about an important detail which you must have missed? This is the slave-turned-slave master, who is none other but Chief Seriki Williams Abbas. Abbas was captured at the age of 6 by a slave master called Abbas during one of the Daumeh to Egba clash.
The owner of the compound is the man you are seeing in the picture. By birth name is Fagbemi Faremilekun. By birth name. All of a sudden, the name changed from Fagbemi Faremilekun to Seriki Williams Abbas.
His master decided to free him one day and send him back to Nigeria on the condition that he would be a slave trade partner.
They made him domestic slave. The first master made him domestic slave, while the second master, Mr. Williams, still made him domestic slave. And when he got to Brazil, this man, Mr. Williams, had the opportunity to send this gentle boy to school. But mind, it was a taboo, they don't send slaves to school. But he has the potential, I don't know the potential he saw in him, that makes him to send him to school. Even taught him this slave business.
In collaboration with his master, a 40-room barracoon was built in which each 9 by 9 feet room contained 40 slaves who were made to stay in the rooms for 3 to 4 months.
So, in a nutshell, our forefathers in Badagry were middlemen between the white and the black. They buy slaves from their fellow black, they resell to the white men. And this business lasted for about 350 to 400 years. You know what? The transatlantic slave trade took more slaves than the trans-Sahara that lasted for 1,500 years.
Slaves were then exchanged for merchandise as little as whiskey, tobacco, rum, glass, cannons, iron brass, woolen cotton, linen, silk, herd, and so on.
Why this was the money we recognized back then in Africa, cowries. But this was only recognized as means of exchange in Africa. The white man doesn't see this as money, and that led to introduction of what we call trade by barter.
One umbrella is for 40 slaves, while the long cannon gun is 100, the short one is 40, a bottle of gin and wine is for 10 slaves each. The mirror and the bead depend on how you bargain. The highest is 12. The ceramic bowl is for 10 slaves, while the Dane gun is for 40 slaves. But the Dane gun and the cannon gun were brought down to Africa so that we use it to fight ourselves, so that we gather some slaves down for them as slaves. And sometimes they use this one as well. So when it was 6 in the morning, they shot it onto here, meaning that it is daybreak. And when it is 6 in the evening, that shows that everybody must go in. Anybody found after that time, that period of time, will be captured and sold into slavery.
A box of matches was an exchange of between 3 to 4 human beings. Before our forefathers could make fire in those days, it takes them time. They have to get 2 stones, they strike together to make fire. But when they introduced matches to us, it was like a magic to them. We are still practicing the same thing in Africa. The white men will introduce something to us to divide us. While we are busy fighting ourselves, they take away our natural resources. This is called the neck rope, and this is for the neck of the slaves. The chain is very light. Altogether, it's about 50 kg. Slaves were meant to walk with this around their neck for 18 hours every day. While traveling, this will be around their neck for about 3 to 4 months before they get to their final destination. And you can imagine the weights of the chain on the neck of human being walking inside the farm for 18 hours every day. I usually say that this chain is very light because they carry this every day, and with time, this will become part of them. So they call this a neck lock for the neck of the slaves. This is called the mouth clip. Remember I said it that there were two categories of slaves: domestic slaves, plantation slaves. Most times the plantation slaves were usually not allowed to communicate inside the farm, especially when they have slaves from the same environment. They have the Yorubas inside the farm. They were not allowed to communicate because they are afraid that while slaves are working and they are communicating, they can plan on how to attack their master. So they usually pierce their mouth with hot iron. In the morning, while going to the farm, they put this on their lips and they padlock their mouth for them not to talk or eat while working on the farm. They were afraid because they don't want them to eat. Imagine when you have 500 slaves working inside the farm and all of them are eating sugarcane every day. Before the harvesting period, the whole plantation will have been, they will have finished the whole plantation. So for them not to talk or eat was the reason why they padlocked their mouth. They call this the light chain for the babies. For the children of the slave not to be playing about the farm so as not to step on what their parents has planted, they gather the children together. They chain their wrists with this size of the chain, make them sit under a tree, far removed from where their parents are working. This is a torture weapon for stubborn slave who refuse to work inside the farm. Slave who disobeys his master, they force this into their hand, down to the wrist. Most times this doesn't go in easily. They will need to break the bone for this to get to the wrist of the slaves. After forcing this to the wrist of the slave, they made them climb a platform. They screwed this up to a tall tree. The slaves will now be hanged on the tree, dangling from morning till night. In the course of doing that, most of them died. The white man doesn't care because our forefathers were using messenger of items. This is called the branding iron, and this was used in writing on the body of the slaves. Back then, slaves don't bear name. They bear the name of their master or any name given to them by the white man. And this was the major reason why today in Nigeria, especially in Lagos, Abeokuta, you come across some Yorubas with English surname. I don't want to mention name. Their surname doesn't sound like a Nigerian name. We have them in Eastern Nigeria. Don't be surprised you hear a surname in Nigeria and you see that same name, same spelling in Republic of Benin, in Togo. Because all these slaves have to bear their master's name as their surname. So for the master of the slaves to be able to identify their slaves, they put this in fire. When this is red hot, they use this to write the name of the owner of the slaves on the body of the slaves. And this is what we now adopt as fashion. Tattoo is what we call it. The second function of this is to pierce the lips of the slaves, so as to be able to padlock their mouths. The last function of this is to pierce the foot of stubborn slaves who try to run away being captured. When this is red hot, they hit this into the foot of the slaves to pierce the leg or break the bone inside the leg. And so they call this branding iron or bone breaker. This is called the ankle lock, and this is for the leg of two human beings. They padlock their leg, one leg, they padlock this on their leg, and they will have to walk with this around their ankle at the same time. From the Barakum, they cross them to the other side of the water, and they call that island. Today we call it Berefo Island. Then they call it the point of no return, journey to unknown destination. At the point of no return, they were meant to drink a particular water. The well was dug by the people of Badagry, and Africa concoction was added to the well. They added Africa concoction to it so that as soon as slaves drink from the well and make recitation, they become less aggressive. They lose their memory. This was the reason why Nigeria was the largest supplier of slaves during the period of slave trade. Majority of slaves taken out of Africa were taken to Europe because the Portuguese were the first set of people to discover Africa for slave trade, and they were the last set to leave Africa. So there were revolution upon revolution in Europe. And so in the year 1772, the judgment for the abolition of slave trade was made in Europe. But this good news got to Badagry in the year 1852, close to 100 years. Our forefathers signed the treaty of the abolition of slave trade with the British in the year 1852. When you go to the British archive, you will see there that slave trade was abolished in Nigeria in the year 1852. That was when it was officially abolished, not physical. We have the British, the Dutch, the French, the Portuguese patronizing Badagry then. So when the British signed the treaty with our people, the British slave merchants stopped coming to Badagry from the year 1852. The Portuguese were still coming. The missionaries were among those that witnessed the signing of the treaty. Reverend J. Martins from the Methodist Church, Reverend C.A. Goldman from the Anglican Church witnessed the signing of the treaty of the abolition of slavery. They signed in the year 1852. So probably they preached to the sun. And so the man buried there waged war against the Portuguese slave merchants in the year 1888. This is the last vessel leaving Badagry. The slave inside the vessel. These are the real chain around their neck. Remember, slave trade was abolished on paper in the year 1852. Physically in the year 1888 by the help of Chief Sumbu Mobi. And Chief Sumbu Mobi died naturally on the 16th October 1893. He was buried closer to the chain, and that's why we have the grave inside this museum.